My name is Ava Mitchell. I'm 29 years old, and on my birthday, my mother whispered to my brother, "While everyone's here, go change her locks." An hour later, police tape was wrapped around my apartment door. Every photo of my 6-year-old son was flipped face down, and on my nightstand, a white envelope waited, one line typed in black ink: "Tell your mother the truth always finds its way home." They thought they were locking me out, but they had just unlocked everything I never wanted to know. Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from, and hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by family. Because what happened next wasn't just a break-in, it was a confession written in bloodless ink, sealed by my own mother's fear. You think you know your family, until the locks start to change. I grew up in a house where silence had a sound. It was the clink of a wine glass against marble, the tap of my mother's heels across polished floors, the pause before my father said my brother's name, Caleb, in that warm tone he never used for me. From the outside, the Mitchells looked perfect. Our Christmas cards could have been magazine covers: Mom's pearls, Dad's gray suit, Caleb's varsity jacket, and me, the afterthought at the edge of the frame. My mother used to say, "Smile wider, Ava. You look ungrateful." I was 10. I didn't even know what ungrateful meant, only that it made her jaw tighten. At dinner, the table was always set like a performance. Candles, cloth napkins, Caleb's plate piled high, mine carefully portioned. Girls should learn control, Mom said once, handing me broccoli while Caleb got steak. My father barely looked up from his phone, scrolling through market numbers like our lives were just decimals. I learned early that approval was a currency I could never afford. Caleb was the golden boy, the quarterback, the straight teeth, the perfect transcript bought by quiet tutoring sessions I could never get. When he came home late, reeking of cheap beer, Mom laughed it off as boys being boys. When I stayed out 5 minutes past curfew, she waited by the window like a warden. I didn't know it back then, but the way she controlled small things, my clothes, my meals, my curfew, was training for something bigger. The first time I felt invisible, I was 8. We were at my grandmother's house. I'd spent all afternoon drawing a picture of our family: 4 stick figures, a sun, and a tiny house, with smoke curling out of the chimney. I showed it to Mom. She smiled tightly and said, "Honey, that's sweet, but next time, make Daddy a little taller." She pinned it to the fridge, behind Caleb's report card. Years later, when I found her scrapbooks, mine were missing. Only his were saved. In high school, I learned to disappear gracefully. Caleb wrecked the family car drunk, and Mom cried like someone had died. She told me to say I was driving. "You can handle it," she whispered, gripping my wrist too hard. "You don't have a future to lose." I did it. I lied. The insurance covered the rest. Caleb got a scholarship the next month. It became a pattern: his mistakes, my silence. After graduation, I got a job at a small data firm downtown. I loved the quiet of numbers. They didn't lie. They didn't change stories halfway through. I sent money home when Caleb needed help with tuition, even though I knew he was gambling. My mother always thanked me with a short text: "Proud of you, honey." It never sounded real. When I found out I was pregnant with Mason, I was terrified. His father, Eli, left the moment I told him. My mother said, "At least now, you'll have someone who loves you unconditionally." Then she added, "Don't expect help from us." For 6 years, I raised Mason alone in a 1-bedroom apartment with peeling paint and a leaky faucet that dripped in rhythm with my heartbeat. I learned to love the sound. It meant the world wasn't completely silent anymore. Caleb married Jenna, a woman so kind it made my mother uncomfortable. Jenna once told me, "I think she's jealous of you." I laughed then. How could Lorraine Mitchell be jealous of me, the daughter who worked weekends and bought secondhand shoes? But now, looking back, I think Jenna was right. Mom couldn't control what she didn't understand. The shift came the year before everything collapsed. My father's company started bleeding money, whispers of audits, shell corporations, offshore accounts. He called it tax optimization. My mother called it family preservation. I called it what it was: fraud, but only in my head. I didn't know it then, but I was already a part of it. It started one summer afternoon in the attic of their house. I'd gone up there to find Mason's old baby clothes. The air was thick with dust and cedar. In the corner, behind a box of Christmas ornaments, I found a banker's box labeled Ava Mitchell Property Trust. Curiosity isn't a sin, but in our family, it might as well have been. I opened it anyway. Inside were property deeds for 2 condos, one in Seattle, one in Portland, and several offshore account statements, all under my name. The signatures looked exactly like mine, except cleaner, straighter, more confident. I wasn't confident. I was barely paying rent. My chest went cold. I took photos of everything with my phone, each flash a pulse of panic. Then I saw something else at the bottom, a white envelope with a single key taped to it, written in delicate cursive, E. I didn't know it back then, but that letter would haunt me. I put everything back exactly as I'd found it, wiped my fingerprints off the lid, and carried Mason downstairs like nothing happened. My mother was in the garden, pruning roses. When she saw me, she smiled too quickly. "Find what you needed?" she asked. "Yeah," I lied. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in my apartment sounded like footsteps. Every buzz of my phone felt like exposure. I tried to tell myself I was overreacting, but a voice in my head whispered the truth. "They used you, Ava. You're the name on their lie." I didn't know how right that voice was. After that night, I avoided my parents' house for weeks. Every text from my mother felt like a trap. She'd write things like, "Come for dinner. We miss Mason." Or, "Your father wants to discuss your future." I could almost feel the hook hidden beneath the words. But guilt is a powerful leash. Eventually, I went back. It was a Sunday, warm, too perfect, the kind of day that made lies look ordinary. The table was set like a magazine spread again. Gold utensils, folded napkins, a roast glistening under soft light. Mason sat beside Caleb, coloring quietly. Lorraine kissed his head but ignored me completely. Thomas raised his glass. "To family," he said. I lifted mine, but my hand shook. Caleb laughed about some new investment he was advising. I knew he didn't even have a job. My mother laughed too. That brittle laugh that never reached her eyes. It was all choreography. After dinner, while she was cutting cake, she turned to me. "Ava, I hope you kept that spare key safe. You never know who might need to check in when you're away." My stomach dropped. She meant it as a threat, not advice. Later that week, she stopped by my apartment unannounced. She said she wanted to drop off leftovers, but I could tell she was scanning the place, her eyes darting to the drawers, the shelves, Mason's backpack on the counter. "You should keep things more organized," she said, smiling. People judge single mothers harshly. That word "people" was always her weapon of choice. She didn't mean strangers. She meant herself. I knew I should have confronted her, asked about the trust, about the forged signatures. But I couldn't. I was still the girl who'd been taught to keep the peace, even when it hurt. Instead, I talked to Zoe. She was the only person who saw through the Mitchell performance. She ran a cafe 3 blocks from my office, always smelling of espresso and cinnamon. When I told her about the box in the attic, she stared at me like she was trying to solve an equation. "So, your parents used your name to hide assets?" she said, her tone low. "Yes. And you still have the photos?" I nodded. She leaned forward. "Then you have leverage. Don't confront them." "Not yet." "Leverage?" I repeated. "They're my parents, Zoe." She shook her head. "No. They're people who see you as paperwork." That sentence stuck to my ribs like ice. A few days later, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. A man's voice, low, uncertain. "Miss Mitchell? It's Brandon Keene, the maintenance guy from your building. Your mom asked me to check on your dishwasher. Said it was leaking." I frowned. "It's not leaking." He hesitated. "She said you'd know." I hung up. The unease I'd been ignoring spread like static. When I asked Lorraine about it, she brushed me off. "I was just trying to help," she said, her tone dripping innocence. "You should be grateful someone's looking out for you." Grateful, that word again. I tried to forget about it, but a week later, I caught Brandon in the hallway near my apartment. He was fiddling with his phone, pretending not to see me. His expression wasn't just awkward, it was frightened. He muttered a quick, "Evening, ma'am," and rushed off. That's when I started noticing things. A drawer slightly open, a photo frame crooked, a faint smell of cigarette smoke, even though I didn't smoke. The sense of invasion was constant, invisible. I mentioned it to Zoe one night after closing. She offered me her spare room, but I said no. I had Mason. I needed stability. The next day, I decided to check my locks. I called a real locksmith. The man examined the door, then glanced at me oddly. "This keyhole's been retooled recently," he said. "You hire someone before?" I shook my head. He shrugged, finished his work, and left. But his words kept echoing. Retooled recently, I checked the receipts from the building management portal. There was an entry. Emergency access. Pier 9 Maintenance, LLC. $5,000. The date matched the week my mother's dishwasher supposedly broke. I didn't have to be a data analyst to connect the dots. I called my brother that night. Caleb always picked sides hers, never mine, but I had to try. Did Mom say anything about my apartment? I asked. He sighed. Ava, don't start. She's just worried. You're so paranoid lately. Paranoid? He hesitated. She's just scared you'll do something stupid. You don't understand what Dad's dealing with. It's complicated. Complicated like hiding money under my name? He went silent, then said softly, You shouldn't have looked in that box. I remember standing there, phone pressed to my ear, feeling my knees go weak. He knew. They all knew. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by Mason's bed, watching him breathe, wondering what would happen if I disappeared. Would they take him? Would Lorraine say it was for his safety? That thought hit me like a punch. By the time dawn broke, I had a plan, quiet, simple, built on numbers and evidence. I wasn't going to scream, or beg, or warn them. I was going to collect proof, piece by piece, until their own lies crushed them. What I didn't know then was that my mother was already one step ahead. The night before my birthday, she sent Caleb a message. One line. Tomorrow, after dessert, go change her locks. The night of my birthday started like an uneasy deja vu, polished smiles, soft jazz, the faint scent of rosewater and money. We met at the cafe where Zoe sometimes let me work late after hours. Lorraine insisted on paying, which meant I would. That's how control worked in our family. The illusion of generosity backed by someone else's credit card. Caleb sat across from me, scrolling through his phone. He barely looked up when I blew out the candle on my small vanilla cake. Mom clapped her hands once, a sharp little sound that sliced through the hum of conversation. Make a wish, Ava. I wished for silence, the kind that didn't come with strings. When I looked up, she was whispering to Caleb. I caught it this time. While everyone's here, go change her locks. He nodded without hesitation. Dad pretended not to hear. Jenna froze mid-sip, her eyes darting toward me, silently pleading that I hadn't noticed. But I had. Every word. I smiled anyway. I'd learned that from Lorraine herself, the performance of calm while your stomach turned to stone. An hour later, Caleb excused himself to check a call. When he returned, his face was pale. He didn't eat dessert. Mom leaned forward, her tone clipped. Well, did you do it? He shook his head. There's police tape around her door. The air went still. Even the cafe's chatter seemed to fade. That's when my phone buzzed. Miss Mitchell, this is Detective Ryan Cole from SPD. Please contact us immediately regarding your apartment. I excused myself and walked out into the rain. I could feel her eyes on my back, burning holes through my coat. Outside, Seattle was a watercolor of light and water, street lamps blurring in puddles, tires hissing. I drove too fast, the wipers beating like a countdown. My mind kept looping her words. Go change her locks. Why? Why tonight? When I turned the corner to my street, I saw the blue and red lights. Two cruisers. Yellow tape. A young officer under an umbrella. He asked my name, then his expression softened. Miss Mitchell. I'm Detective Cole. He told me the door had been forced with a crowbar. Nothing stolen. No fingerprints, at least, none that matched mine. A neighbor called in a disturbance, he said. We found your brother already there. Said he had a key. Of course he did. But what struck me wasn't the damage. It was the precision. Whoever broke in knew exactly where to go. My bedroom door was splintered, my dresser drawers untouched, but every photo of Mason was flipped face down, his smile erased from the room. Then I saw the white envelope. One sentence typed in perfect black ink. Tell your mother the truth always finds its way home. That line would echo in my head for weeks. The next morning, Cole called again. His tone was heavier. Miss Mitchell, we traced a transfer $5,000 from a company called Pier 9 Maintenance, LLC into a bank account belonging to a Brandon Keene. Do you know him? My breath caught. He's the maintenance guy. Works for the building. He also works for someone else, Cole said quietly. That company has ties to a Lorraine Mitchell. For a moment, the world tilted. My mother. She'd paid someone to break into my apartment. The message wasn't random. It wasn't about me at all, it was for her. I hung up and sat in silence. Mason's small sneakers were lined up by the door. His drawings hung crooked on the fridge. Everything I loved was here, and somehow she'd reached into it with her cold, perfect hands. That night, I called Zoe. She came over with coffee and a box of chocolate donuts. I told her everything, every whisper, every envelope, every flipped photo. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she said, "You know what this means, right?" "She's scared," I said. Zoe shook her head. "No, Ava. She's cornered. And when cornered people get scared, they get dangerous." She was right, and the next few days proved it. Because my mother wasn't finished yet. The first shot across the bow came 2 mornings later. A knock on my door at 8 a.m. Firm, official. I peeked through the peephole and saw 2 strangers with clipboards. One flashed an ID. Child Protective Services, Miss Mitchell. We received a report. My stomach fell through the floor. A report about what? The woman's tone was professional but distant. Concerns about your son's living environment. I almost laughed. It sounded like one of my mother's phrases. "You're welcome to look." I let them in. Mason was still in pajamas, building a Lego tower on the rug. The apartment was spotless. I'd spent the night scrubbing every corner, instinctively. CPS checked the fridge, his room, asked him a few questions. "Do you feel safe with your mom?" One of them asked gently. He nodded. "She makes pancakes every Saturday." They smiled, took notes, and left. I stood at the window until their car disappeared. Then I called Zoe. "She actually did it," I said, my voice shaking. "I told you," she answered. "This isn't a family feud. It's a war." That night, I created what I called the Ready File. Mason's school records, photos of the apartment, letters from his teacher, and Zoe's notarized statement, all labeled, dated, scanned. If Lorraine wanted to weaponize motherhood, I would armor up. But I wasn't the only one collecting things. Detective Cole called again. "Miss Mitchell, we subpoenaed Pier 9's records. The LLC was registered 4 months ago. The signatory? Thomas Mitchell." I closed my eyes. "My father?" "Yes, ma'am." He hesitated. "There's more. We pulled footage from your building's security cam. The night of the break-in, Brandon Keene didn't use a crowbar to get in. He used a copied key. The line between fear and fury blurred. Then my family gave it to him." Cole's voice softened. "Looks that way." I thanked him, hung up, and immediately started planning. Step 1. Confront the source. On my terms, not hers. I invited Lorraine to dinner at my apartment neutral ground, turned battlefield. She agreed too easily, replying, "Fine. But be ready for the truth." Zoe helped me stage everything. She said, "If you're going to trap a snake, make sure you've got a lid." We tested the phone placement on the counter beside a glass bowl for echo. I recorded a few trial runs, the faucet dripping, my own breathing steady. The app's red light became my safety net. The day of the dinner, I could barely breathe. At noon, my boss, Nina Alvarez, called me into her office. Her smile was tight. "Ava, I just saw something. The Seattle Ledger ran a story. About your parents." She slid her phone across the desk. "Local couple under federal probe, identity fraud investigation expands." My name was buried 3 paragraphs down. Victim believed to be daughter used as financial proxy. It should have felt like relief. Instead, it felt like exposure. Colleagues stared as I packed up to leave early. I could hear the whispers following me down the hall. "That's her. The whistleblower. Poor thing." When I reached the parking lot, my phone buzzed again. A text from Caleb. "You ruined us." Then another. "Dad's losing everything. Mom can't even show her face. Hope you're proud." I stared at the screen until the words blurred. He still didn't get it. In his world, truth was betrayal. That evening, Zoe came over early. "You sure about this?" she asked. "I have to be," I said. "If I wait, she'll rewrite the story again." At 6:55, the intercom buzzed. "It's me," came her voice, sharp, familiar, the same tone she used when I was a child and had tracked mud through her kitchen. Zoe squeezed my hand once, then slipped out the back stairwell as planned. I stood in front of the door, feeling my pulse in my throat. The lock clicked. Lorraine Mitchell stepped inside, immaculate as always. Her perfume hit first, floral and expensive, the smell of control. Her eyes swept the room, pausing on the new deadbolt, the spotless countertops, the phone on the counter she didn't recognize for what it was. What did you do? She asked. I cleaned, I said. You always like things tidy. She closed the door behind her, setting her purse down like she owned the place. You shouldn't have involved the police. You shouldn't have hired a criminal, I replied. She froze, then smiled. Let's not start with accusations. But we already had. She moved closer. I did everything for this family. For you. And this is how you repay me? For the first time in my life, I didn't flinch. You taught me how to repay people, Mom quietly, efficiently. Her eyes narrowed. Be careful what you say, Ava. I can still take everything from you. I kept my voice level. Not this time. She didn't know the recorder was already running. Outside, rain began to fall again. Steady and cold, drumming against the glass like an omen. The rain was steady, a thin gray curtain behind her. My mother stood there like she was carved from marble, beautiful, flawless, hollow. She looked around my apartment like it was a crime scene that offended her. You really live like this? She said softly, tracing her fingers along the countertop. No wonder you're always so defensive. You've lowered yourself. I'm raising a child, I said. Not an image. Her laugh was small, sharp, always so dramatic. She turned, eyes narrowing. You have something that doesn't belong to you. The files? I asked. The ones you forged my name on? She stopped smiling. You have no idea what you've gotten into. Your father is a criminal, I said, and you're his accomplice. The silence that followed was thick, electric. I could almost hear the hum of my phone recording on the counter. I kept my hands steady, even as my pulse hammered in my ears. Lorraine crossed the room slowly, her heels tapping the tile like a metronome. You think you're protecting yourself, she said, but you're playing with fire you don't understand. You've always been impulsive. That's why you can't keep a man. Why you can't keep a family. That's rich, I said, coming from the woman who paid someone to break into her daughter's home. Her eyes widened just a fraction. She hadn't expected me to say it outright. Then, slowly, she recovered, lips curling into something almost gentle. I hired a repairman. You're imagining things again. I stepped closer. The police traced the money. $5,000 from Pier 9 Maintenance LLC, Dad's company. The faint twitch of her jaw was the first crack. You don't know what you're talking about. I let the words hang there. You're right, but the detective does. And so does the bank. She looked around the room again, searching for her footing. Then, suddenly, she smiled an unsettling, maternal smile. I understand what this is about, she said. You're angry. You're lonely. You want attention. You've always needed someone to blame. Someone to blame? I repeated. She nodded, stepping closer, lowering her voice like she was sharing a secret. You're unwell, Ava. You always have been. That's why you see threats everywhere. Why you twist everything. Caleb, and I worry about you. So much. That was her weapon, gaslight wrapped in concern. I didn't speak. I just let her fill the air with her poison. The phone was still recording. Finally, she dropped the act. Give me the phone, Ava. No. Her expression hardened. You think you can beat me? You've already lost. Lorraine's hand shot out fast, furious, grabbing my wrist. Her nails dug into my skin. I will call Child Protective Services, she hissed. I'll tell them you're unstable, that you're neglecting Mason. You'll lose him before the week is over. I didn't pull away. I just stared at her, my voice calm, cold. And I'll tell them you bribed a man to break into my home. You want to see who they believe? Her grip loosened. For a moment, I saw fear. Real, raw fear. But it was gone as quickly as it came. She straightened, smoothing her blouse. You won't do it, she said. You never do. You always fold. That's when I smiled. You're right. I used to. I picked up my phone from the counter. Her eyes flicked to the red recording icon. Too late. I stopped the recording, saved the file. Her face went white. What did you do? She whispered. What you taught me, I said. Protect the family name. Just a different way. Her mask cracked completely this time. She looked smaller, almost fragile, but her voice turned sharp again. You'll regret this. I already do. A knock echoed from the door. A man's voice called, Seattle PD, Miss Mitchell. Her head snapped toward it. What did you do? I took a slow breath. Nothing illegal. When I opened the door, Detective Cole stood there, rain dripping from his coat. Sorry to interrupt, he said, his tone deliberately polite. We need a quick statement about the Pier 9 transaction. Lorraine stiffened, frozen in the doorway. This is harassment, she said. Cole glanced at her, then at me. Then I'll take it in writing. I nodded. Come in. She stormed past us, heels striking the floor like gunfire. You're making a mistake, Ava. You're destroying this family. I looked at her one last time. You destroyed it years ago. I'm just done cleaning up after you. She slammed the door so hard that the picture frames rattled. For a long moment, the only sound was the rain. Cole exhaled slowly. You okay? I nodded. She threatened to call CPS. He frowned. We'll make sure she doesn't. I handed him the phone. It's all there. Every word. He glanced at the file name on the screen. Recording 01. Then he looked up at me. Miss Mitchell, he said quietly, this is enough. But I wasn't finished, not yet. There was still the envelope, still the letter E, still the truth that had been buried long before me. After Cole left, I sat alone in my kitchen, the silence humming around me. My wrist throbbed where her nails had broken the skin. Rain traced long silver lines down the window. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the scared daughter. I felt like something sharper, steady, unshakable. The locks had changed, and so had I. The next morning, the city felt different. Clearer, the kind of crisp Seattle air that makes everything smell like wet concrete and renewal. I hadn't slept. The recording sat saved in 3 different places: my phone, a flash drive, and a cloud account under an alias I'd created years ago when I still thought paranoia was a flaw. Now, it felt like survival. At 7 a.m., I called Detective Cole. I'm ready to give you everything, I said. He met me at the precinct, in the same sterile conference room where we'd spoken before. I slid the phone, the printed transfer records from Pier 9 Maintenance LLC, and the photos of the fake trust documents across the table. Then, carefully, I pulled one more envelope from my back. The night I found the original box, I said, there was a smaller envelope inside it. With just one initial E, Cole opened it. Inside was a bank key stamped safe deposit box 473. E, I continued, was Elaine, my mother's sister, the one she never talks about. He frowned. The estranged aunt? She didn't vanish, detective. She was erased. I think she found something just like I did. He leaned back, processing. Do you still have the key? I nodded. And I know which bank it belongs to. Later that afternoon, I stood in a gray marble lobby of the downtown branch, holding that key like a blade. The box slid open with a mechanical click. Inside were papers, old, yellowed, but also a USB drive and a letter addressed in looping handwriting. For whoever finally sees Lorraine for what she is. Elaine had tried to expose them 10 years earlier. My mother had shut her down, bought her silence, and rewritten the story as a family feud. But Elaine had kept proof. Emails between Lorraine and Brandon. Wire transfers. The very first trust forged in her own name. I stared at the evidence, my reflection faint in the polished metal box. They thought they'd buried the truth in generations of control, but they'd only handed me the shovel. I closed the box, locked it, and whispered, the truth always finds its way home. That night, after putting Mason to bed, I uploaded everything to a secure drive for Cole in the DA's office. My hands didn't shake this time. It wasn't revenge for revenge's sake. It was the end of a cycle of cleansing. They had tried to silence Elaine. They had tried to break me. Now, it was my turn to speak. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, you know that silence can be the cruelest weapon. I spent years thinking obedience was love, that keeping quiet was survival. But the moment I chose truth over fear, I found freedom, not revenge, just release. Before you go, tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and hit that like button if you've ever stood up to someone who tried to control you. Subscribe for more stories like this one, because sometimes, the real family we build starts after the one that breaks.